Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to True Sight. I almost called it Around the Pit because we were talking about that before, but it is in fact a different show. Toffees will be on the show later, but this is in fact True Sight. I am Ian Doublejohn Barker, joined of course by, what did I say I was going to call you? John Boyega's better-looking cousin.
Well, I mean, it's honest.
Lee Massey. Lee, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How you doing, Ian?
I cannot complain, aside from the splitting headache trying to drill a hole through my eye. But
you look so happy.
I'm a professional, so I will work past it.
All right.
I mean, I have to deal with kids who like League of Legends every day, so I'm used to headaches. Bazinga! Anyway, going on to tonight, we got a full show for you tonight. We got Toffees coming on in the next block to talk to some amateur casters about the Shanghai Open qualifiers. A lot of fun action going on down there, and looking at what do the majors leave for the little guy? What space is there for new casters to get into the game? Things of that nature. After that, we will have Tiffany teaches team fights. Tiffany Kwan breaking down one of the better team fights from what was kind of a stompy group stage. There were a lot of stomps. There were a few, but she picked out a good one. She'll teach you a little bit about indecision in team fights. And after that, it's been, 2-3 weeks since patch 6.86 went live?
Yeah, it was since the last time we talked.
That's correct. And I think it's time to talk about what effect the changes have had on the game. But before we get that far, we are going to throw it to the growing ever handsome Stephen Toffees Pierce. Toffees, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, Ian. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. And I understand that you've got a couple guests for us tonight, so why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate being here. Lee and Ian, thanks for kicking it over to me. My name's Toffees. You guys hopefully have heard of me. If not, I hope you do now because you're listening. So that's my name, Toffees. Don't wear it out. Now, I am joined by a couple of folks for this rendition of Coffee with Toffees. I've got two guests here today, and we're going to talk to them, one and then the other, though I wouldn't be surprised if Annie sounds in at any point because I think she's got some pretty strong opinions. Now, the first guest is Mitchell Huffa. He is the creator of the Dota 2 Oracle. You can find his personal Twitter over on the Twitter at CorruptDropbear if you're looking for him. And Annie, she's an amateur caster and a member of the Standard Deviant Stat Crew. You can find her at AnneeDroid, and they'll tell you a little more about where to find them later on in the show, as well as you can find their Twitters on their pictures as we chat. So we're going to start out with you, Corrupt. Do you want me to call you CorruptDropbear, or do you want me to call you Mitchell?
I'm fine with either. Mitchell is fine as well.
All right, Mitch Bear. Let's talk a little bit about what you were trying to accomplish when you created this account. So it's actually called at Dota 2 Qualifiers. And I know that you set this up in response to a problem that you saw sort of come to the surface when it came to open qualifiers. What was that issue? What was the purpose of this account?
Well, basically, there's been a lot of issues with the qualifiers for pretty much every single tournament that Valve set up. This is mainly because Valve doesn't pay anybody to do it. Valve doesn't organize anybody to do it. The last time was the International 5, I believe. Twitch actually had to basically set up everybody from every studio into one place, and that was how they sorted it out. Frankfurt was a disaster. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew anything. Some of the smaller casters went, "Oh, can I cast this?" And they were like, "Yeah, you can." And then they didn't cast because they still didn't know what was going on. Right. So basically, this was basically an attempt to at least try to pretend that we can get our stuff together into at least say, okay, here's who's casting what.
Right, and I think that's a big challenge. We'll talk to Annie about that a little bit later, but to me, it seems like one of the largest challenges of being an amateur caster in something like this is not only obviously getting people to see you, but having the wherewithal to get up and do it for so many hours because there's just so many games going on for 2 viewers. I mean, that's a really tough way to break through. So you created this account, and I think you created it maybe 5 to 6 days ago, if I don't miss my guess, and you're already up to almost 1,000 followers. So clearly it's working to a certain extent. Is this something that you're going to continue doing for future majors? And are you planning to expand it into maybe some like Google Calendars and ways to coordinate the casters among themselves?
Well, originally, actually, the Twitter account was almost an afterthought. It was everyone just try to get as many casters to try and communicate with each other so they didn't collide on games. And then have that turned into a spreadsheet of how many people were, when people were going to be on. Okay. And then everyone was like, hey, we can use this as a Twitter account put everyone going, okay, this is when this person is playing, this is when they're who's casting that game. You can just spit that out, and I think it's done modestly well. I'm not proud. I'm not. It's going considering it was started less than a week ago. I think I'm pretty proud about it. I think unless there's a major change in how the system works in the next major, it's going to be called the Summer Major, I believe, or Spring Major. I believe it's Spring. If there's a change in it, I might turn it off. But if there's still no organization, I might be forced to just do it again because we need some sort of at least. We need people to talk to each other, especially in the lower ranks where it's basically people go, oh, I'm going to be casting, and then they're casting only for 2 people because they can't get their message out.
Okay, so you bring up format. Let me ask you this. As somebody who helped coordinate sort of this whole process for the amateur casters, do you think that this format is good, or do you see a way to maybe improve it to make it even more accessible to everyone?
I think the format is changeable, but I'm not sure how, because especially if the open, I'm mostly talking about the open qualifiers. I think the main qualifiers are mostly okay right now, apart from no organization having control over it, which is another matter entirely. Open qualifiers is basically single elimination and everything goes on at the same time. So for most of the part, this entire week has been 24-hour streaming for every single person. They go to bed, they wake up, stream, go to bed, and that's not possible for a lot of people. And I've had to have people help me out with Twitter when I go to sleep. That's during the worst time as well. That's during EU because I'm in Australia. So I almost want to see it's more spaced out, like have it on different weeks, because just for casters, and also we need a double elimination bracket. Yeah. Single elimination is way too harsh.
It is harsh. It's a bit of a meat grinder, and I think that you're right. I think for me, as somebody who does work and knows a lot of players who have full-time jobs, because let's be honest, being a pro player is very difficult in terms of paying your bills. Having qualifiers during the North American work day is a very difficult thing for a lot of players who could potentially have performed well to justify taking a day off of work. When let's be honest, most of us who do esports and have full-time jobs don't have jobs that are absolutely wild about giving us time off. So I think that's something, if anything needs to be addressed, that's something to definitely bring up. Is this something that are you planning on using this account to sort of promote amateur casters throughout the year outside of just qualifiers, or is this going to be just a qualifiers only project?
Right now, this was an only qualifiers project, but I haven't heard. If I hear more requests for this stuff, like more trying to get more of the independent casters to actually be interested in it, I see no reason for me not to keep doing it, because it's pretty simple. Just do a tweet whenever you're ready, or do a retweet. It's
right.
So yeah, I'll see what the demand is. Honestly, that's how I'm seeing it.
So let's talk briefly about numbers. As you sort of had a chance to watch a lot of what was going on, what were the numbers like for open qualifiers? Because it feels like Valve sort of just says, yeah, cover it if you want to, not expecting a lot of viewership. What did you see when it came to viewers throughout this tournament?
Oh, I've seen, I think throughout the entire tournament, we've seen upwards of about 5,000 viewers, are split across about 20 channels. So that might not sound like a lot, but considering that we've only had this set up, like literally, there's no advertising for this, I think that's pretty big. Like some of the biggest channels were who people I didn't even know were around in like a week ago had 2,000, 3,000 viewers during grand finals. So Wannabe, 1234 had OD Pixel is obviously one of the bigger ones. Grand Grant, Turbo, Mythos, a new caster called Music Play Games with Dane Lee. I can't even say her name. So like people like that, and even without like during the rounds of 1,024 rounds of 512, there was around at least from 50 to 300 viewers for each
Right.
individual thing going, and that's 4 streams at a time.
Okay, so the bigger casters like OD Pixel or Toby Wan or some of the studio casts got really big numbers, but it wasn't uncommon to see some of the smaller casters, independents even, to hit hundreds, if not thousands, of viewers, and that's something that I think we don't see every day, which is kind of exciting. What did you think about the quality of casters that were coming out of this tournament?
I was actually very surprised.
I was too.
There was a
I
lot
was
of
too.
Yeah, there's definitely a high quality of casters that have been, like some people just didn't realize. One of the big standouts for me was Dane Lee, who she's been doing a few more casts. I have to say, I also did some stats for her in the past, but she's really picked up her game. Another one was the 1B1234 who did Chinese qualifiers. I've never heard of this person, and like, that was brilliant casting.
Yeah.
There's like heaps of other people that have done perfect work. There's obviously been a lot of casual casts, what we'd call the BTS casual cast, the Moonduck casual cast, who people just don't, who are just going at it as they want, and that's fine. And some of them did that very well as well, and they got a lot of viewers through that.
Now, Ian, did you have a chance to play any of the footage or any of the sound clips from casters that happened throughout this tournament?
I got to look at them.
Okay, so you got to watch a few of those casters, and because I know that Corrupt's obviously coordinating this, and Annie's a caster, so she's biased. Ian, as somebody who just got to enjoy the tournament, what did you think of some of the hype that you got to see coming out of these casters?
You know, I think that's one of the things that actually stood out to me watching the tournament was how great the casters are, because as somebody who's watched a lot of amateur, for example, League of Legends or even Counter-Strike, things of that nature, it's really easy for people to get lazy about their broadcasting, fall into patterns, do the meme streams, things like that, which is fine to a point, but I was extremely impressed with Annie, for example. You sent me several clips, and every one of them was on point, and I felt like I could have heard that in a main qualifier, you know, even in a an event like Beyond the Summit or something like that. They were extremely high quality across the board, and I've always thought that's honestly one of the things that the Dota community has going for us, is such consistently strong talent.
Yeah, and open accessibility for that talent. Now, one of those talent that I did want to bring onto the show to have a chance to sort of talk about open qualifiers and what goes on with it, and the difficulties and excitement that goes hand in hand with something like this, is a caster named AnneeDroid. You may have heard of her, you may not have. I think that if you haven't, it's probably going to change pretty soon. She works a lot with Llama and some other folks. I think part of that's because you're waiting for a new computer that'll allow you to stream directly. But Annie, tell me a little bit about, before we get into open qualifiers, I know that you've been trying to kind of break in as a caster for a little while now. What are the difficulties associated with sort of making that transition from just firing up a computer when you darn well feel like it to actively working to be casting in Dota 2?
Well, the biggest challenge is you start from nothing. You have pretty much no fan base, and maybe a couple friends that'll tune in when you're casting and a couple people to give you match IDs, but you really start with no one to watch your stream. You have maybe 2 or 3 viewers, and that's really not a whole lot of motivation to go and stream for 3-4 hours during an entire tournament. So I think once you secure a couple tournaments and get those viewers, it's a huge boost, and you just kind of keep building on that. But it's pretty cutthroat in here because there's so many casters in a lower circle trying to break into an incredibly tight upper circle.
It is absolutely true. And I know that, like, I used to cast. Some of you might not believe that. Crazy. There was a time when I was interested in casting, and I used to work with Coddle and some of the other casters that are out there right now. And a lot of how those guys got started was things like the 82L, the Amateur Dota League, small tournaments like the SEC, just these kind of pickup game that brought maybe 15 to 20 viewers to you, and you ground that out weeks at a time. I know that you were involved with a lot of that sort of amateur casting on that side of things with 20 viewers. How did that differ from your open qualifiers experience? Because it was probably almost easier to get into open qualifying casting. And how did that compare to the exposure that you got versus doing some of those smaller tournaments?
Well, it's really just entirely 2 different things. I think a lot of the casting work that I've gotten before I kind of am starting to break through into the scene has been people just on my Skype contacts list being like, hey, I need a co-caster. Are you around in 20 minutes? And now going for the open qualifiers, knowing that I was going to pair up with Llama for a couple games, just kind of going in and casting one game after the other, building the viewer base. We started at 100 at the beginning of the day up to, there we had 12, 1,300 by the end. And it just felt really good knowing that there were viewers supporting us and choosing to watch our stream because there were so many going on at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and Lyrical Gangster, who's actually hanging out in chat right now, a shout out to him as an up-and-coming caster in the scene as well, brought up the fact that on a personal caster's stream, getting 1,000, you said 1,300, getting 1,000 viewers, getting 500 viewers is a game changer in terms of being able to get the exposure to take the next step as a caster. Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. I think when it comes down to it, there's two things a caster can get for their work. They can get money or exposure, and at a lower level, it is 100% about exposure. I frankly couldn't care less for being paid about casting now. I just want people to see me and know my name, and I want to break into the scene, and viewers are the only way to do that. So I think having something like the open qualifiers where we get games that people want to watch and want to be drawn to our stream is amazing, and huge shout out to CorruptDropbear for organizing the Oracle to make that happen.
It sounds like we've got two sides of a coin. On one side of the coin, we have casters willing to do the work who want to bring us the games. There's 64 games happening at once, so being able to consume that is important to fans and great for casters. On the other side of the coin, we had a need, which was bringing those small streams to the fans, and it sounds like CorruptDropbear has sort of found a way to do that. And it sounds like a bit of an accident, Corrupt, but it sounds like this is a chance for us to sort of take this opportunity to the next level for the little guy, and I'm excited about that. I do want to bring up, and this is kind of an exciting thing for all of us, because it's funny. You brought up how it's a cutthroat world out there, Annie, but I think it's also interesting that the small casters, the amateur casters, are also a very tight crew who's very supportive of each other. So it's sort of this weird thing where you're like, somebody says, I got hired for this, and you're like, yeah, it's kind of this weird, frustrating thing, and also wonderful. So what I do want to share is one of those casters that was grinding it out for the entire qualifier. I think we saw her casting something ridiculous, like 10 to 15 hours a day. I know that you were doing it with her, Annie. And before we talk about what her opportunities are, how difficult is it to grind out a 15-hour day of casting, or however long you guys had to go?
It was the most fun I've ever had casting. It's definitely the longest I've gone straight. We started at 6 a.m. my time and went until about 10:30 at night on one of the days and just went all the way through. It was amazing. And just being motivated by the people in chat saying this is great, and the fact that the games were fun, they were quick, we got to move on and follow teams throughout the entire day. That's something I really enjoyed about the format, was that we could kind of watch. We followed Cookies, and then we followed Mama's Boys. We could keep going with that, and the frustrating thing was by the end of the day, obviously, our sentences are incoherent. We're saying nonsense because we've been going for, like 14 hours straight, and people were judging us on our casting then, and that's kind of difficult because I'm making some bad calls and I'm out of coffee and whatnot.
But it's all about the grind. It sounds like you guys did a great job with that. Speaking of someone who's grinding, your partner in crime for much of this was Llama Down Under, another female caster who's recently burst onto the scene. And we wanted to give her a big shout out because she did just, make the move to the big show, if you will. She's headed to California to work with BTS on the qualifiers starting up next week. And I did want to bring a statement that BTS actually put out when I requested it from LD about her specifically. And I think that this actually shows the value of something like the open qualifiers to these studios. And she said, we like to give a chance to new up-and-coming talent to see what they can do on a larger stage. Similar to what we did with Lyrical at Frankfurt Hub, Odie Pixel with his early casting with us, etc. Llama's a promising new caster, and bringing her in for coverage this weekend is a continuation of the same philosophical approach. Her overall work ethic and dedication to improvement certainly helped her case. And I think that is a huge thing when we talk about like open qualifiers, right? The idea that you guys were dedicated enough to do 10 to 15 hours straight, that you were constantly working to improve, interacting with Twitch chat in a way that big streamers can't to sort of improve your game, seems to me like a really great opportunity, not only for casters, but also for Dota 2 at a large, right? To sort of find new talent, see who the new flavor is, and get people up there. I'm excited about seeing where this goes in the future. A big shout out to her for making that step, as well as to Lyrical, who I know has also made a jump recently to sort of some bigger things. A lot of new casters on the scene, and I'm very excited to sort of see what they do in the future. Now, let me ask you, I guess as we sign out of this interview or this final thing, I do want to appeal to you guys, everyone watching the show, and say that I really, really, really want to ask you to support the amateur scene. I think the first step that you can do that is heading over to Twitter right now and following at Dota 2 Qualifiers. That's the site that Corrupt put up to help sort of put casters and viewers together. And I think that whether or not that's done just for qualifiers or for everything, it's a great chance to sort of find new streams, find new experiences. And honestly, nothing against seeing the big dogs. Like Toby Wan had 14,000 viewers today. OD Pixel had 4,000 or 5,000 yesterday. And they had their webcams on. They were doing sort of a relaxed cast. And people like that. It's a lot of fun to sort of see it. But when I wanted to see a cast done aggressively, professionally, some play-by-play, some color, the good stuff, I had to use Dota 2 qualifiers to find those, and I found some really impressive games that I had a ton of fun watching. So I encourage you guys to give that new talent a chance and go check them out. I thank everybody who tuned in for the interview tonight. Don't go anywhere. We got way more show for you. Before we go to them, I want to thank the guests. CorruptDropbear, where can folks find you? This is your chance to say your piece.
Oh boy. Hi. You can find me at CorruptDropbear. I also want to give a big shout out to SetDev Stats, Standard Deviant Stats, who pretty much raised me from the ground up in the Dota 2 scene. Sander Dota 2 also helped, as well as Knoxville, for a lot of the night shift, which I'm happy about. And I do want to hear what you know. Do you want me to continue with this, even with other tournaments? If that's something, please spam me with "keep going, Kappa," whatever. So thanks, guys.
I'm tweeting you right now to tell you to keep going. In the meantime, as I send that tweet to you, Annie, why don't you tell folks where they can find you, what your plans are? You know, get a little pitch out there.
Well, as I said, I'm a rising caster, and I'm really hoping to continue to break into the scene. Llama, she's going forward. She's getting a big shot now, and I'm hoping I can follow up at some point. She's obviously amazing, great work ethic, but hopefully I'm not that far behind. Feedback is always appreciated on any casts. If you want to just go find my VODs and stuff and let me know what you think, you can find me on Twitter at AnneeDroid, and yeah, thank you so much for just caring about the amateur scene, because it's hard enough to break in, and viewers mean everything.
I 100% understand. The tweet is sent, CorruptDropbear. Everybody follow suit. You guys can find me at Toffees TV over on Twitter if you choose to do so. We've got all kinds of fun shows like Around the Pit and other things going on, as well as the new Daily Coffee with Toffees. I'm very excited to be here. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this throughout the year, so make sure you keep coming back. Follow the channel. Follow at Daily over on Twitter. There's going to be some good shows coming. I've already got a couple of guests booked that I'm not going to tell you about because you got to be surprised. So stick around. It's going to be a ton of fun. And I do want to give this a plug real briefly. Myself and I believe Annie as well are going to be hanging out this week on the Moonduck Casual Couch stream covering qualifiers. So make sure you check that out throughout the week as we kind of come and go and just have a good time. So if you want the serious stuff, I think there's some other places you can watch. But if you just want to have fun, relax, and sort of watch people talk about Dota, which is crazy as it sounds, I really enjoy doing. Make sure you check that out. So we're going to give it back to Ian and Lee on the desk in just a second. But before we do, I just want to say, play more Dota. And as always, Toffees out.
Thanks so much, Toffees, once again for another great interview. Thank you so much to Annie and Mitch. Mitch gave me like 20 different names to call him during the cast, and so I'm just going to go with
Who
Mitch.
is he? Like,
Corrupt Mitch. Bear Mitch Drop.
Bear Mitch Drop.
Corrupt Drip.
I like
but
that.
Anyway, thanks so much, you guys, for the interview. And of course, the broadcasters aren't the only people who are working to get better at their craft. Coming up next, we've got Tiffany teaches team fights to teach you how to get a little bit more decisive in your team fighting.
This week, we're looking at a fight from the Open qualifiers for the Shanghai Major. In the finals for the first NA Open qualifier, Peruvian team Elite Wolves faced off against America's Team Freedom. In Game 2 of the best of 3, right after the 16-minute mark, Team Freedom already had a slight advantage over E-Wolves, who pop Mirana's ult, Moonlight Shadow, and go for a gank on the lone Ember Spirit, with Mirana, Spiritbreaker, Sven, and Undying. Sunbee on the Ember manages to dodge both the Stormhammer and Spiritbreaker charge with a beautiful sleight of fist, remnanting into his team's Dazzle and Slardar. The 4 from Elite Wolves begin to retreat, but get pressured by Team Freedom, turning into a 5v5 team fight that ends in a 3-for-0 trade for Team Freedom. So what went wrong here? When the gank failed, Elite Wolves made the smart call to retreat from the Ember, who now had backup. However, that was the only concrete call they made, as the rest of the fight, they seemed to suffer from a lot of indecision on whether or not to re-engage, causing E-Wolves to split up, go in 1 by 1, and ultimately lose 3. It really starts here, following the failed Blink Crush from the Slardar. Spirit Breaker and Sven chose to jump back in on the Slardar, but were unable to burst him down with the Dazzle Shallow Grave. Spirit Breaker turned to charge the Ember and now arriving Gyrocopter, leaving Sven alone. Meanwhile, Mirana, who was at the front of the retreat, took a leisurely stroll around to the Radiant Ancients, arriving just in time to watch Sven die. Dying by the tower, Undying, unable to decide whether or not to move forward to engage through the calldown, ends up taking the full damage in return for only a dropped tombstone, and dies to Gyro Illusions in the backlines, while Gyro joins the rest of his team to take out Sven. Razor, who TP'd in mid-fight, tries to stay in the backlines along with the now wandering Spirit Breaker. Razor does move forward to engage the team, but only after the rest of his team retreats, and thus dies to Team Freedom. On top of all of that, E-Wolves also had no vision on the south part of the river, meaning they did not see Gyro and Tiny approaching the fight. The consequences of this fight are pretty major, as E-Wolves loses both their Tier 1 tower and the Aegis, as well as giving Team Freedom a fairly significant boost in net worth and gold. Indecision in teamfights can be really costly. I see this often in pub games as well, where a team unsure whether they will engage or not ends up entering fights one by one and dying. Had E-Wolves as a team fully committed to retreat or to turn around and fight, the outcome probably would have been entirely different. And in the end, Team Freedom wins both this game and the series, moving on to the NA qualifier with a 2-0 victory over Elite Wolves. So in the end, know whether or not to commit or retreat, make sure the entire team knows, and vision, as always, is vital. I'm Tiffany, and this has been Tiffany Teaches Teamfight. Back to you at the desk.
So, 6.86, 2 weeks old. What do you think?
That's an excellent question because I don't know that anyone knows what to think at this point, but we're going to do our best to
analyze
give
it
it a
and
round
talk
table.
about
So I'll go ahead and kick things off with my favorite new addition to patch 6.86, and that is Oracle. Oracle, the guy whose tooltips you had to read 20 times. Oracle, the guy whose weird skinny body makes you self-conscious every time you pick him. This hero, I have to say, as a nuking support, I'm sorry, I misspoke, as a kill-stealing support.
Kill stealing, yeah, exactly. I mean, I love that heal that also damages you at the beginning. Oh my god.
Max that E, people. And I tell you what, I started playing this hero. I got to play a lot of Dota over the break, and I quickly realized that even though his moves are a little bit confusing, he can burn a lot of mana because he has to sort of combo the Q and the E or the W and the E and things like that.
He's a very combo-centric hero.
He's extremely capable of really turning a team fight around and things like that. So what are your thoughts on Oracle, Lee? Tell me how you feel about the new guy.
Honestly, I like the fact that they've thrown him into the captain's mode out of nowhere. I like the fact that like he changes the way you play games, not on the same level as techies, but he definitely makes you rethink about initiating.
Not in a bad paranoid way.
Yeah, it's not a bad paranoid way where you don't want to go for rune.
Absolutely.
But it's definitely one of those things where you have to like be careful about where he is on the map at the time of initiation and whatnot. I mean, I also think that his moveset, it's not necessarily something you can like rely on too much because you don't know how it's going to affect the actual match in itself.
No, I agree. It gets a little bit confusing when you play Oracle, just because I can't count the number of times that I went to finish off a kill with his E. I thought that I had plenty of damage to take out the guy that we had been chasing, and lo and behold, all I did was give him a buttload of health.
Exactly. So you've healed him, and it's just, and then you get raged,
and then you rage. Exactly.
Yeah. But I like him. He's interesting. He's not necessarily. I think he's going to be more of a utility pick for most people. He's not going to be somebody that you sit down and say, this is going to be our new Dazzle. No. But he's definitely going to be somebody that you cautiously pick when needed.
And I will actually say to you, nay, sir, I disagree.
Oh,
I
God.
do think that Oracle is perhaps the answer to the Dazzle pick, because obviously there's only one Dazzle in the pool. Everybody wants somebody that can prolong a team fight, that can keep the carry around for a little bit longer. And while his W, Fate's Edict, does disarm you, so you can't attack.
Agreed.
If all the healing in what's it called? Broken Promise is his ultimate. All the healing in Broken Promise is doubled. So what you do
False
is
Promise.
False Promise. There we go. So you drop False Promise, you drop Fate's Edict, and then you drop your E, And next thing you know, your carry is virtually invincible.
I feel. But you could also use your Fate's Edict on. I've been using it on Ember Spirit whenever he decides to jump in and use his Sleight of Fist, because it does 0 damage because you've disarmed him and whatnot. But it's still like the reaction is interesting. Like in the middle of a fight, you have to wonder where it's going to go from there. Another thing I was really curious about is, what are your thoughts on the Aether Lens? Since we talked about that a few weeks ago.
It's funny because Oracle's my new favorite hero, and ironically, we're talking about a hero, one of the few heroes that maybe doesn't need it because his Q travels even when they disappear into the fog of war.
Exactly.
But I don't think there's any question that Aether Lens is changing the game quite a bit. I actually have, if our producer wants to throw it up real quick, take a look at the range. Let me see if I can find that real quick. So this one is Burrow Strike with the Aether Lens.
Aether Lens. It's farther than a blink.
It's ridiculous. It's further than a blink. This is the range on Dazzle's Shallow Grave. You are fully zoomed out in this view. That's not even a max Shallow Grave. It's only got 3 points in it, and you can basically grave someone from so far back in the team fight that you don't have to worry about people jumping in and bursting down your Dazzle, taking that out of the fight immediately.
I love Shallow Grave as an ability. It is one of my favorites.
It's one of those things I think that, especially in pubs, really makes people rage. This is the range of his weave. Real quick, can you see it on the screen? That's because it can't fit on the screen.
Oh my God.
Do you see? Okay, up in the river, I'm pointing at the prompter like an idiot.
But everyone can see it.
Up there in the river, up in the upper left-hand corner, folks, that is where the range goes, which means that you can practically weave the Roche Pit from the middle lane. So that's easy. So it's a good thing that it's a good thing that they took his the vision from weave off. Otherwise, you could practically take mid turret and weave Roche Pit.
Just to check. Just to check.
But other than that, I think it's such a versatile item. It's something that Zeus can use, obviously, from long range. It's something that I had a couple other supports picked out. We can use it on Bane. I mean, Bane, as somebody who plays Bane, I feel like I'm always going in for the Fiend's Grip and getting absolutely screwed because I am way too close. Not so there that suddenly Aether Lens fixes that.
I feel like Bane is one of the supports that I like to use more than anyone else. I mean, as he doesn't have a heal, which is one of the things that I like to have in a support.
He heals himself.
Brain sap. But at the same time, he's such a early game, 300 damage, just no problem, just out of nowhere, and it heals him at the same time. That's nothing to laugh at. I mean, that's a kill right there.
Well, yeah, and how many times did we see people going to the mid lane, dropping the brain sap, and next thing you know, you're winning mid lane? You know, even in an unfavorable matchup, just because you can steal all of that health.
A Bane rotation to mid is nothing to laugh at all.
Nothing. Friends don't let friends pick Bane. And actually, here's the funny one I saw. I've got a clip for this that I picked up off the internet. Let me see if I can grab this. This one is actually. Check that out. Tiny's Avalanche with Aether Lens. This is Sing Sing with a bit of a troll build. Actually pretty much eclipses the screen. And with a good blink and a toss, you can pretty much, and that's another thing, it gives extra damage to the toss, but if you, this will loop around in a second, we're going to see Tiny go ahead and head into the trees, and watch where he starts this avalanche.
Oh my gosh.
That's with Aether Lens.
The range on that is just ridiculous.
It's insane. And then we've got Invoker Tornadoes that go for literally the length of a lane.
Yeah. The initiation, with Aether Lens on most heroes nowadays, is going to be something that this might be a second or third item on heroes now. Maybe we're going to see builds where Aether Lens is no longer something where it's because I love when Ice Frog adds new items to the game. There's always that question of is this going to be used regularly? Is this going to be something where it's just nobody's ever going to use it? Is it going to be very specific? But I think Aether Lens, if you're going for pub matches or something like that, you could use this regularly and figure out, okay, now I know what the real range of this ability can be. Like Blink Strike, Burrow Strike on Sand King. I love that ability anyway.
And I think while it does a lot of good things for intelligence carries, people are relying a lot on that burst damage. I think that it actually does the most good for supports. Once again, we're seeing the ability to put in these high value spells, things like Nightmare, things like Fiend's Grip, things like I just had it, Shallow Grave and Weave.
I just had it.
From a range that actually makes supports safe. And I got to say, sometimes as a support, I'm thinking, okay, so I bought a Solar Crest. great. Doesn't do me a lot of good if I die instantly in a team fight.
Not at all.
Oh, I bought a mech. Good thing I had at least a 0.1 second window after I was being perma-stunned to get the heal off before I died, and now Aether Lens gives me a chance to contribute to a team fight meaningfully without having to worry that I'm just going to die.
I'm genuinely curious how Enchantress would be with Aether Lens and her ult. Oh my gosh, just like artillery,
it's bad.
Launching from miles away.
It's bad. I
love
learned
it.
that the hard way in my pubs that an ancient apparition does not last long against impetus damage, guys.
Nope, it's a delete. It's actually a delete button.
It is absolutely a delete button.
All right. So I have a couple questions for you because I've been playing with my friends, and my friends are all one of those people that after a match we all sit down with a coffee or vodka and we talk about like what happened in the match in the first place. And I remember I played a Faceless Void match a few days ago. I don't know if my friends are actually watching right now. I'm sorry. After this change to Faceless Void, like all the builds tell me, like I like to look at builds. I don't necessarily follow them, but I look at them and see how the meta is like defining this hero right now.
Sure.
And they're not telling you to build the attack speed items like Mask of Madness. And Assault Cuirass is still on there, but it's like later in the game. I'm really curious, what is this new Faceless Void? What is this new hero we've suddenly gotten like hidden in a patch?
Honestly, if you can get enough outside support, I mean, that's the real trick with Faceless Void, isn't it? He's going to drop the Chronosphere 9 times out of 10. If you're in a pub game, at least, you're probably going to clip a teammate. You're going to end up shutting down like a Death Ward or something like that. So my question is, what actually have you seen in these new builds? Are people going more Yasha? Are they going Battle Fury, I suppose, isn't new to him specifically. But
so with the removal of Backtrack, and Time Lock getting a nice significant buff, I feel like. I feel like Time Dilation, a lot of people that have been watching have been leaving it at level 1. They haven't leveled it as you would like. You would level Backtrack and Time Lock kind of significantly as with Time Walk at the same time. But like Time Walk, and you're using Time Walk and Time Lock. Time Walk and Time Lock. God dang it, time-based
what
heroes.
Have you done?
What have you done? The lock,
The lock and the
anyway,
walk.
so you're using these two abilities and you're building them up, but you're leaving Time Dilation at like the level 1, and you're letting them use their abilities on you. You're negating the damage from the ability, and then instantly using the Time Dilation so they can't use it again. And I mean, now you're building Blink Dagger on a Faceless Void, so you can initiate with Blink Dagger, but you still have the health regain from Time Walk there as well. And I feel like they've taken away the slow. They've done a lot to this hero that just kind of changes the entire hero. It's no longer, I'm just gonna like dodge, because I remember there was a few weeks ago before the patch where I literally dodged like 3 or 4, like it was like 3 or 4 Laguna Blades. I dodged just straight up. I was just like, this didn't happen.
I'm sure the opponents loved that. I'm sure they were extremely happy with the balance on that particular issue. I think when I read the tooltip on Time Dilation, I was absolutely blown away, because I thought, wait, so you're telling me that basically we've got, for all intents and purposes, the poor man's global silence.
Poor man's global silence.
On top of jumping in and locking down an important carry target with Chronosphere. So at that point, even if you don't catch people outside the Chronosphere or inside the Chronosphere,
you can still mess with them.
You can use Time Dilation and suddenly shut them down. I think the interesting thing is that without Backtrack, suddenly he's not, not suddenly, he hasn't been the tip of the spear, so to speak, for a few patches now. But I
remember those days.
Yeah. Fortunately, they've
triggered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh my god.
Fortunately, I'm happy that they gave him some more utility. And that being said, I like the direction that they went with him, because he can jump in and pop Time Dilation if he doesn't get hit with, like a Dragon Tail stun or getting hit with a coconut, something like that first.
Hit with a coconut.
The monkey's throwing that coconut these days.
The monkey, I know. I want Ribitar so bad. It's like $20. I don't want to drop it on that.
That's an awful lot.
What do you think about the Zeus Arcana anyway?
You know what? The man's got abs.
He does have abs.
And I don't.
Old man
so,
old man
old rock man abs.
I know, and I love the comic that went along with it, because I love the fact that the comics are giving people, like, giving the heroes personality beyond what we hear in the game, because like Enigma is apparently a snarky guy.
Yeah.
He's a snarky guy, and I like him. I'd have a drink with him. Like, what do you think about? Okay, now moving on to the next one, Invoker. I feel like Invoker is one of those heroes who a lot of people want to try, but he was never like the sniper or troll of 6.83, where it was just like he is overpowered. You had to sit down and learn this hero, and I feel like a lot of people don't like to go into Gamepedia and read up everything they can about certain heroes.
Yeah, they like the easy answer. They like being told skill this, this, and this, and then you can go in and win.
Pudge.
Yeah,
That's why Pudge is so popular, because nobody wants to go into Gamepedia and read about this hero and what they can do.
Oh, yeah.
Invoker is by all means, he is the piano player's Dota hero.
Yes.
You know what you can you know what you can do, and you know what tooltip is needed for what moment. Like Meteor, like Meatball. You just bring the meatball down. Tornado, EMP. There's so many different
Alacrity,
things. And I feel like Invoker is the one hero who is almost a one-man Dota team. He is like, if played effectively, he can single-handedly change a match.
He can be a right clicker. He can be sort of initiation. He can go walk in and then use the cold snap. Yeah, things like that.
There's a lot of things he can do, but with this current patch and that slight buff, I'm seeing him in almost every single match, and I'm thankful to say that it's all, even the people that don't know how to play Invoker who are playing Invoker, and it makes it a lot easier for the rest of us.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you hit on that I absolutely love about Invoker, because I have a hard time, I have a weirdly hard time hating Invoker, and that's because, as you said, he's a piano player's character. I mean, somebody who's really, really, really strong with Invoker, really technically skilled, can turn Invoker into this big, scary monster. At the same time, I have seen more than enough bad deafening blasts into bad meatballs.
Bad meatballs.
And magically, Invoker is not an issue in the team fights.
They need a voice line for that. Just like if you miss the meatball, it's like bad meatball.
You're talking a little bit about the changing hero pool. That's actually something that I would love to talk about right now, because we did have the qualifier. We haven't seen a lot of top level teams compete in 6.86 yet. We saw WCA.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on.
Oh my God. Some of these teams. Okay. Shout out to Merlini. You're doing awesome, bro.
Man.
Oh my God.
Merlini has showed up within that timid caster exterior is just a monster of a
Ursa,
carry.
good God, man.
Ursa, Bloodshaker, Faceless Void. He's done it on just about every way.
hero.
Yeah, every single one of them. But one of the interesting things, I've got some stats, and shout out to Nahas, by the way, who chatted with me earlier and pointed these out to me. He pointed out that the top 5 win rates with 99 plus games.
Wow.
Beastmaster, which is an interesting pick to me.
Yeah, he is an interesting one.
I suppose he's got the single target lockdown. Obviously, that's great. And now with the boars, he's able to do a little bit better in lane, and also with the vision from the Hawk. That's great. Batrider, happy to see Batrider back in the meta.
I played a Phantom Assassin game, and oh my God, I did not know Batrider was such a pain. I mean, I played against. I mean, if you know, if you're watching, oh my God, you did amazing. The dude like lassoed me, pulled me up on top of the rune spot on Radiant side, and I couldn't move because my blink strike was on cooldown, and it just got demolished by the AOE by the fire. I was like, oh my God, I'd never even thought of that.
As a fellow Phantom Assassin player, did you build Battle Fury first?
I built Battle Fury into BKB. I went straight for the BKB. Usually,
good call.
I was like, okay, this is not happening anymore.
There are a few times where I build Battle Fury into. I try to go for. Well, sometimes I go for Yasha. I've actually started going for Basher a lot more lately.
Really?
Because I cannot rely on my fellow pub supports to lock a target down for long enough.
Yeah, agreed. And it's
the
most
full
aggravating.
RNG build. Next on the list is Lone Druid. And I think it's really cool to see what is that move called? I believe it's called Primal Roar. Or something.
I love it.
Yeah, the one that scares everybody away. Great, not de-initiation. What's the word I'm looking for?
Running away.
Running away, for lack of a better, it'll come back to me in the middle of the show, and I'll just yell it at. Yeah, great way to peel and to get people off of you. Plus, the Lone Druid Bear feels like an integral part of the game again. You know, it wasn't always a fun hero. It wasn't always fun when Admiral Bulldog could press a button and get an entangle every single time.
Oh my gosh.
But I've never honestly been super happy with Lone Druid out of the meta. I think he's just a great kind of color addition to the way the game is played.
I'm hesitant. Lone Druid is one one of those heroes that I haven't had an extensive amount of time playing
Sure.
or playing against. I feel like every few patches, there's certain heroes that are just kind of left in the wayside. You don't see them in every single match. Medusa in the past few matches, she wasn't used every single match as like you see nowadays. And Batrider, I've literally probably played 3 matches against the Batrider in the last 3 years. And I mean, it's just not one of those heroes everybody picks. And I think this new patch is bringing people out of the cobweb storage. I mean, like, hey, these people are in the game still. You guys want to see them?
Yeah, by the way, don't look at Medusa for too long. That's
You
one
learn.
of the reasons. Yeah, one of the reasons that I really liked seeing Medusa back in the meta a few patches ago. I mean, there was a point where she was being picked every single game, but I do love seeing that now that you can't just farm out the jungle and expect to win just from jungle farm. You do get to see these sort of fighting carries that farm in between going in for these big epic team fights. Speaking of big epic team fights, the top here we've got IO is the next spot, and then the top win rate with 99 plus games played is Chen.
Oh, Puppy. Hi. How you doing?
Yeah, hey Puppy, welcome back.
Welcome back.
And I remember when...
No, he never left. Actually, Puppy never left.
That's true, but Chen certainly did.
Yes. Ooh, I like it.
And I got to say, I'm a little bit triggered by having Chen back in the meta, and the reason for that is because when Team Secret was at their height, they would pick when they were consistently beating evil geniuses before they got their stuff together. We esports now.
Esports now.
Puppy liked to draft these really push heavy lineups because as soon as he got a couple of centaurs and one of the Hellbear Smashers and then one of the trolls, I mean your towers were done.
Yeah,
and
no longer.
Your farm was completely gone from the map.
Yeah, because he
Absolutely
owned the
gone.
map at that point. You can't beat a Chin once he's got his army of things.
Yeah, not to mention the
Fairy tale
ability,
creatures. I was like, he's got an army of
all
fairy
of
tale
the
creatures.
Mansters, all those goblins and gobbledygook.
Like the Shrek line. It's like, some of you may die, but that is a risk I'm willing to take.
Curiously, while we're seeing a shift in some people up, the top 5 KDAs, by the way, were Lone Druid was number 1, Sniper was on there. Oh God.
Oh God.
We saw Zeus, who obviously is going to have a lot of kills because that Thunder God's Wrath can kill steal even better than an Oracle.
Everything. It's amazing. That's what I use it for primarily. Like somebody pick Bloodseeker, I got this.
No, don't worry. You just get him down and I'll take care of it.
Okay.
Thanks for all the items, by the way. Ember Spirit obviously on that list because he's still quite versatile, still able to farm extremely
The skill
well.
ceiling on him is interesting. I like the fact that he's not somebody that somebody can pick up. Like, he's not somebody that the average person can sit down, download Dota 2, and just run through a pub match and not have any problems.
Yeah.
He's one of those heroes where like it takes a little bit of thought, and you have to understand how the hero works on a secondary level, not the initial level, but the secondary level.
Yeah, what else is this ability used for? For example, I mean, Fire Remnant obviously great for getting around, great for escaping,
great
but
for getting around.
Only the top players are thinking of it as, oh, I get to dodge that final tick on the AA blast.
Yeah,
or I get to dodge a few ticks of what's it called? Earnest Shadows. You know,
Exactly.
there are things like that. And I mean, then again, that doesn't stop people from pubs from seeing EE jump to avoid a gank and go, I could totally do that.
I can pull that off.
You can't stop picking it unless you're good at it. Please, for the love of God, stop. Anyway.
Please, for the love of God, stop. I mean, that's almost like Silencer and Bristleback. I mean, like on the same level. I mean, I feel like Silencer is one of those heroes. I mean, with the change, with the skill change, I like the fact that people that didn't read the tooltips are now like wondering. Like I love going against Bristleback as Silencer because Silencer will continue in the fight using the ability over and over again, and that counts, and that just lengthens the amount of time that you're going to be taking. Dots.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and keep going. Keep doing the quill spray, man. You're hurting you a lot more than it hurts. By the way, speaking of Silencer, with the skill change in patch 6.86, I am shocked how much damage a support Silencer can do in the laning phase. Like he puts the dot on you and suddenly half my health is gone, and so is my healing salve. And where I could have sworn I bought tangos,
I think
could have sworn.
They're now, and there's no trees around you. Just like, oh God, like what happened?
Must be a Silencer.
But I'm looking at this. We see the lowest 5 win rates are is that list. I mean, Silencer, Bristleback, Tidehunter, Phantom Lancer, and Earthshaker. Earthshaker, questionable. I'm really curious why maybe a lot of people that don't know how to play Dota are picking Earthshaker all of a sudden.
And that's the thing that has to be said about this list. We're reading into a lot of stats for the Shanghai Major Open qualifiers. There are going to be some people putting together teams just for the fun of it. There are going to be some teams. I mean, for God's sake, the winner of the first European qualifier was called Mama's Voice.
Yeah.
I mean, so we can only take so much from this before we start going into the main qualifiers and then, of course, the major itself. But yeah, Earthshaker sort of surprising when you think about his utility. Not so surprising when you consider the number of times that Earthshaker lies down a Fisher, stuns your opponent, and then traps everybody from chasing them.
Exactly. I want to bring something up that one of my really good friends, who is also a Dota connoisseur, the dude is an amazing man. I'd like to give a shout out to Big Bad Bear Cub. He's a really cool guy. He says that the reason the meta currently is so interesting and so kind of Wild Westy is because we have nothing in between now and between the inception of the patch and the Shanghai the Shanghai Majors.
Yep.
Like, we have the Shanghai qualifiers, which is all cool and whatnot. But nobody's bringing out their big guns. Nobody's using their major, like, interesting strats. Nobody's, like, really picking apart anything major until, because the big teams that we see, like the top 8, top 20, aren't playing until the Shanghai Major. So we've got this Wild West where really everyone that isn't a pro is defining their own patch.
Yep.
What is the meta right now? What is interesting? We see Ursa just, like, played by Merlini, just run through a match. And I'm curious,
man.
like, is he currently the meta? Who is the meta right now?
Yeah, we haven't hit that point where we see a big match where a PPD, a Puppy, and FMG says, by the way, Treant Protector is back. We haven't hit that point yet where people have their own, or have their opinions sort of dictated by the meta. And honestly, I think it's an interesting time because as somebody who I play a card game called Netrunner. We were talking about that a little bit before the show. As soon as a new pack comes out, I mean, it's like something like 20, 30 different cards for all the new factions. That's the minute that everybody's deck list goes just batshit crazy.
Yeah, it changes.
It goes absolutely crazy. But seeing some things settle in curiously is seeing the Bristleback so low on the win rate. Bristleback actually had the lowest win rate of any hero with over 99 games, which is curious to me after watching Alliance win with it in the WCA. Can you give us any idea, like, what has hit that Bristleback pick so hard that his win rate would drop to a quarter of games?
Well, and like, after thinking about this for a while, I think it's because Bristleback is no longer, like, the game doesn't revolve around 5-manning in such a close-knit group, because Bristleback really excels when there's multiple heroes right near him and he can just run you down. He can run away. It's one of those things where it's just like the kind of game you're playing. Maybe we're not playing the same way when Bristleback was literally just, like, running through each match and just ruining whatever plan you had. I think that also the Winter Wyvern nerf, because Winter Wyvern and Bristleback, in my pub match experiences, I've experienced those two are a pain together, like living and breathing. Good
if
Lord.
you don't have a hard enough time outrunning a Bristleback, good luck when Winter's Curse is dropped on you. And now, funny enough, I'm not seeing Winter Wyvern on the top in the successful list, as we predicted that maybe the female dragon got nerfed just a little bit.
Female dragon.
Interesting a couple of the picks that are interesting for me to see here. Phantom Lancer on the list. It's curious to me, maybe just because it's more of a farming hero, and with supports getting things like Aether Lens, with people getting things like Fairy Fire, it's harder to get that early kill just by throwing the lance. It's easier for the supports to get in there, drop the Fiend's Grip, drop the Shallow Grave, whatever. Any other thoughts on why Phantom Lancer, and also why Silencer would drop off so badly? You know what I think? Actually, I have an explanation for Silencer.
Okay, I'm listening.
Everybody saw Burning's game on Silencer when Vici played.
And now he's not,
and everybody's like, I could have 300 intelligence.
I can do that.
Why not?
Easy.
For Burning did it.
I think one of my really, like, one of the things that we've talked about in the past few days is Abaddon. Abaddon is suddenly we had that conversation.
Several DMs.
Oh my God, I love that guy. I mean, okay, personally, I've been just spamming Abaddon like crazy because Orb of Venom plus his passive early game, you cannot do anything. As I said last night to one of my friends, it's not that I want to kill you. I just want to hit you one time. Because once I hit you one time, everybody else is going to be here. Exactly.
Drop that aphotic shield, run straight into them, hit them once, and then suddenly the game is on. Yeah, absolutely.
All of a sudden, it's just like, oh, and then you can it takes literally 4 to 5 people to kill you because late game Abaddon with a Heart of Tarrasque and an Eye of Scotty is like, oh, let's go attack this guy. Wait a minute. We need everybody. We need all of us.
And I think it's interesting because Curse of Avernus, I believe, is his
passive.
That's right. Always used to be something that one of those things where PPD, for example, would skill it last. And suddenly, Curse of Avernus is like one of the strongest pushing. I mean, you drop Curse of Avernus on a Rax or on a tower.
God, everybody's hitting.
Everybody's just dumping damage.
He's
into
the better troll warlord because instead of a
'cause
massive boost to attack speed for 4 seconds, it's forever.
It's as long as he keeps hitting it.
Yeah.
Everybody gets what's that called? Battle trance.
Trance. It's like it's a smaller version of. It's just poor man's. It's the economical battle trance. Because instead of a cooldown, it's a passive.
Absolutely, yeah. And then of course the aphotic shield, being able to break some debuffs, and then also his ability to just it's not quite a nuke. His Q is not, or no, his W is not quite a nuke. But it does sort of proc together. You drop the W, it hurts you, pops the aphotic shield, and suddenly
this is Q.
Is that his Q?
W is aphotic shield.
W
the
is
other one
aphotic
is the
shield.
it's a healing thing.
Yeah,
I use that to deny myself.
Really?
It's amazing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because it does damage to you, and then it's like I like the fact that we have denies in Dota. It's one of the things that makes me enjoy being a Dota player.
I agree.
Is the fact that you can get dropped on by a few people, and unless you're stunned or something, it's almost like Pudge early game. He's just like, oh, that didn't happen. Oh, that didn't happen. It's just like deny him. Oh, it's aggravating. I hate that so much.
Speaking of new heroes, we talk. Abaddon's not a new hero, maybe perhaps new to the meta, but we got 3 new heroes in Captain's mode. We got Earth Spirit, Terrorblade, and Oracle, and a lot of people cried havoc and let slip the dogs of Nerf over Earth Spirit, but he's only got a 55% win rate.
But when he's in your game, you want him nerfed. Yeah. Because he is just one of those heroes that I know how to initiate on him, but if he's a good Earth Spirit, then it's very hard to secure that kill. I mean, I played against a guy who I think was a piano player because he pulled the cool things you can pull off with Earth Spirit, like kicking the rock and then pulling it back, and then it's almost like you're playing Mortal Kombat with somebody, like Scorpion, like get over here. you know?
I watched a game. I forget who it was. I believe it was eHome actually at the I forget what that.
I think I watched
it. It was a Radiant Dire Cup. eHome was played Earth Spirit quite a bit, and we saw. They were starting in the Radiant jungle. They had a ward that spotted 2 Dire players running back up towards their secret shop. Earth Spirit kicked a Stone Remnant, hit both of them, and then while they closed in, he then brought it back and stunned them again. And it was a miracle play. I gotta say though, speaking of wait, I guess I didn't see. No, yeah, Miracle and Weehaw. I've seen Miracle and Weehaw play Stone Spirit in pubs to incredible effect. When are we going to see the carry Stone Spirit, man?
I don't want to see I don't want to see that. I don't want to. Just stone. I'm going to trigger.
You don't,
do not need that.
You don't think that? God, what's his ultimate called?
Magnetize.
Yeah, Magnetize does enough damage.
Okay, so Magnetize is one of those things where it's almost like Bloodseeker if somebody literally just plays Dota for the first time. I'm ruptured and they're running away and they're just like, why am I losing health?
Yeah, why
am I losing health?
Absolutely.
Well, when you hit Magnetize on people that aren't used to playing Earth Spirit and they're still clumped up, they're just like, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? And then it's like, it's almost to the point where like in the next few weeks, everybody will know Magnetize is something where you get away from your friends.
All right. Terrifying thought.
I'm listening. I love these.
Vacuum wall into Magnetize.
Oh, wow. Don't say that out loud. Oh, wait, you already did.
I already did.
So now we're just going to see Earth Spirit and what's this? Oh, my God.
Yeah, scary stuff. We've only got a couple more things to hit before we close up shop for the night. I wanted to talk about Oracle. We touched on him briefly, got a 58% win rate. The one that I saw only picked 59 times. Terrorblade has a 67% win rate. Is Terrorblade back?
No, it was picked 59 times. It's like he just picked 50. He's one of those heroes where I feel like you kind of have to build a little more around him than you'd comfortably do so. It's almost like having a player on your team who only has a pool of like 3 or 4 heroes and you have to work for him.
Sure.
It's like if you pick the Terrorblade, you kind of have to work to make the Terrorblade viable in that match.
Sure.
And there's just so many ways like outside of your control that it could just go belly up. So I feel like picking Terrorblade in most matches is kind of a gamble you have to really consider.
New lineup. My final thought for the night.
Listening.
Viper. We're off to a bad start, I know. Venomancer, Terrorblade, Chen, Dazzle.
That's
You cannot repel push of that magnitude.
you cannot repel. Yeah, you can't. You're not going to be able to get
You're not
up
gonna
high
be able
ground.
to stop
But
that.
I mean, at the same time, if they outfarm you early on, you're done.
That's a bad.
I mean, especially if it goes late. I mean, if it goes late and it's got like, I'm one of those people that theory craps off the top of my head. So
Sure,
I'm just thinking, like, if you built somebody like heavy around that lineup, like somebody like Tiny or somebody,
Yeah.
and you just initiated with a blink Aether Lens Avalanche. Yeah.
Not to mention with the mana pools in that lineup, you get an anti-mage, and that's gonna.
I've seen a lot of anti-mage lately. I don't like him anymore. I don't like him.
Well, the good news is that Morphling is also coming back, so we'll get some more anti-mage. What is this, TI2, for God's sake?
Oh yeah, we're bringing it. It's a circle, man. It's all a circle.
Dota's cyclical. Beautiful job. Thank you, OS Frog, for bringing the classics background for another hit. Well, that's going to do it for us this evening. We broke down patch 6.86. If you enjoyed the show, and if you enjoy amateur casting, patch 6.86 are teaching your friends team fights, or John Boyega's better looking cousin. I had to get it in one more time. Please follow the channel. It's one of the buttons down below. You can find it. Also, check us out on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter is @.esports. Facebook is daily.esports. Also, check us out on YouTube. YouTube daily.esports. What's that?
We're on there now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we've been on there for
The
a
internet.
while. We just got internet in our building. It's a really auspicious time for us. Lee, any final thoughts before we close up shop?
No, everybody have a great week. We'll see you back here next week. Same time.
Absolutely. We'll be back in 1 week. And, of course, play some damn Dota.
Oh, yeah, definitely.